And now a message from our friends at Fetching Food.
The 1970s and 80s had Elbow, Gravy Train, Purina, Meow Mix, and Bell Bottoms. You've changed your clothes, now change how you feed your pet. Like Bell Bottoms, kick the kibble and join us in the 21st century with the healthiest diet for dogs and cats. Feed naturally, feed raw, feed Fetching Foods.
Make your depth 500 feet.
Yes, sir. Make your depth 500 feet, 7 degree, down bubble.
This is good coffee, Buckman.
Hello, pups and kittens, and welcome to the fun-filled and informative episode of the Groomer Next Door podcast. I'm your host, Chris Green, and joining us this week is Marci, returning for her second visit. I know she has a lot of room to catch up with Dr. Koger, but she's trying very hard, and we are very happy to sit down and talk to her again. Now, to go into our fact of the week, I have to go back to a little bit when we first started the podcast just a bit ago, and you heard Morse code. That Morse code was "Welcome to the Groomer Next Door podcast," dubbed over a line from Down Periscope, a 1996 movie. So I thought I'd put them together, and it would work out great for this Fact of the Week. So as they were called sea dogs, dogs have long been popular mascots in the United States sea services for their ability to build morale. In the early days, dogs often served a more practical function by leading patrols onto foreign shores to search for food and warn of any dangers lurking out of eyesight. But mostly dogs provide welcome relief from the monotony of being at sea for months at end. Well, by that sound, Marci is about to enter the podcast studio, and after that great fact of the week, I think we're ready to welcome Marci KOSKI back to the podcast.
Oh, hello. Hold on a sec. Dad, we have a guest on the podcast.
Welcoming our guest back to the podcast for the second time. So we're going to call this Marci KOSKI Volume 2. Thank you for coming back and being on.
Hey, thanks, Chris. I'm really happy to be back.
Volume 2. I mean, that's pretty good. You have a little bit to go. Dr. Koger has you beat by 5, but there's time.
Man, I'll break that record. Bring it.
She's like, nope. Yeah, it's funny. I told Marci before we started, I'm like, it's so much different coming back for the second time. The first time you come on, you have no idea what this is all about. And then you find out that I have no idea what I'm doing, and it works. So, no surprise. It's like that, pull the curtain away and you see the wizard from Wizard of Oz. You're like, wait, what?
Right. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
I watched that movie for the first time in a long time, and maybe I was too young to watch it and I enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy it on the flip side. It's kind of sad. Yeah, it was sad. I was like, oh. I always like to throw in some kind of movie stuff. Everybody always does it now. I don't know. So, I guess I'm going to ask the question, any good movies you've seen lately?
Ooh. I think the last movie I saw was The Crimes of Grindelwald. Fantastic Beasts.
Oh, yes. I haven't seen it.
Yeah. I'm kind of a big Harry Potter fan, so.
I am too.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. Some people were like, they put too much stuff in that movie, and it was really hard. And I'm like, you know what? I figured it out. I don't understand the problem. So I loved it. I thought it was great.
Better than the first, or did it live up to the first, or did it exceed the first one?
I think I liked it better than the first.
Really?
Because of the scenes with the, that kind of cat-like dragon creature, the Wuru, or I can't remember what it was called,
I haven't seen it yet.
Like this cat-like, oh, sorry, I'm not spoiling anything.
No.
It's just like, it's this cat-like dragon creature, and Newt Scamander lures it back into his suitcase by bringing out what's essentially a big cat toy. And it was just like, to me, that was like the best scene.
Best scene in all movies. Well, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm dying to see the movie. I can only reference the first one. I'm so sad.
No.
But I will see it as soon as it comes out on DVD or digital, I should say, because I don't do DVD. I will watch that.
Yeah.
So
Excellent.
we haven't talked since the holidays. How were they? Did you do anything fun?
It was just pretty much I stayed in town and got to spend some time with family, and it's now mid-January and my Christmas decorations are still up.
Ours too.
So it's been pretty busy, and since the holidays, and I've been working a lot, which is really great. I just, it was a fun holiday season. December was kind of slow for my business. I think that's because everybody was focused on the holidays, but I was too, and so it all worked out. And now business is back up, and people are getting serious about tackling their cat issues. And we're doing good.
You're not late on taking them down. You're early in putting them up.
Ooh, I like that. I'm going to have to tell that to my husband when he asks, when are you going to take them down? I'm going to be like, never. I'm going to be proactive about putting them up next year.
Yeah, it's like putting Elf in a shelf back in its little box away. I hate doing that, so I should have just left it out. I've thought about it a few times, but all right. So I'm gonna throw it out there because we talked a little bit about it. I don't know if there's a lot to talk about, but what was your input on this FDA issue that's gone out? What is things that you've been hearing and things that your input to it?
Right, and I have to admit I haven't followed it too terribly closely, but and I'm not a nutritionist, so I can't speak to like, oh, the best diet is absolutely XYZ for cats. I definitely have some opinions, but they're not professionally, like, I can't like say, oh, this is what it is for cats and blah, blah, blah. So, but what I do agree with is people having choices for what they want to feed their own cats. If they've done the research and they like raw food for their cats, they should be able to feed raw food for their cats. And there are certain companies like Rad Cat that I think were unfairly targeted. And I know that there's a huge community that really is upset about what's going on. And I've heard things like the testing didn't follow standard protocols, or there was, I think that there's a lot wrong happening, and I wish the process was a little bit more transparent and consistent across different products that the FDA is looking at. So to me, it just doesn't seem all that fair, and even if companies can come back after being targeted, it takes a huge amount of work to come back from that. And I think, yeah, it's really sad, because I know a lot of people really care about what they feed their animals, as they should. And this is hard to deal with when it comes to, how you care for your cat.
I totally agree. And, we talked about it. I'm pretty sure we talked about it when we talked the last time about Rad Cat. And it seems like this is a continued topic that, we're in a podcast, so we're all veterinarians here. We're all nutritionists. We're all everything here. And
that's we just play it on a podcast. But that's kind of how as people who love both dogs and cats, it's so hard to believe that so much of this is happening, and yet on the other side of that, others like the big pet food that we've seen countless different things come through isn't being targeted. So it is completely unbelievable and unfair. And, we were talking about Radcat before we started, and we were talking about this situation. And, the only takeaway that I can say is, please, everybody, do your research. Don't just let these different opinions come out from the FDA or anybody else. Read, because this is just, it's sad. They're literally just blindly telling people just to go, and you're fine. Just go buy that stuff. Don't just buy kibble. You're fine. It's called dog food for a reason. Just go that way. It's so sad.
Yeah, it's, the commercial pet food industry is huge, and they have a lot of influence, and they are big for many reasons. They've been able to cut costs by maybe using ingredients that aren't the best for your animal, or maybe their process is more economical, but it doesn't retain the nutrients that your animals need. And so they get very threatened by smaller companies who want to do good things and are able to increase the quality and the nutrition for animals. They get very threatened, and it's easy for those small companies to suffer for it. So. And
it's big. It's something that they don't want, that second side of the industry. They only want their side and nothing else. So yeah. Well, I'm gonna take you off the hook on that one, because it is a hard subject.
Yay.
I know. I have to walk that subject a lot. I know. So before we get into everything else, there are two things that I wanted to throw in there first, because I didn't want to bury the lead. You were talking about a couple things that you do as well. Some of your charities or charitable acts that you do. And the first one, I'm dying to hear, because I've talked a little bit on the subject, but I love this subject, and that is cats in prison. You do stuff about that. Please.
I do.
Entice us with these stories.
Okay. So there are a few programs around the country where animals are brought to prisons to become socialized, like if there's a behavior issue, and they can't be adopted out because of it. They go to prisons, live with the prisoners, whom I'm going to refer to as handlers from now on. And the handlers work through those behavior issues, and then the animals return to the humane societies or whatever shelter they were involved with, and then get adopted out. So these programs are win-win-wins for everybody. It's a win for the shelter because they get to adopt out more animals. It's a win for the animal because they get a nice forever home. And it's a win for the handlers because in prison, it's really hard. Prison is very hard. It's very isolating. And having somebody there to love you unconditionally, or that you can worry about, you don't have to just spend all your time worrying about yourself, that you can actually put energy towards something else, have something else to concentrate on, is very healing for a lot of people. So the particular program that I'm involved with is through the Washington Department of Corrections. That's Washington State. And cats are transported from the Humane Society for Southwest Washington every 2 weeks, depending. And cats stay up at the Larch facility anywhere from a couple of weeks to a couple of months, or however long it takes them to work through their behavior issue. But I go up there about once a month, and I talk to all the handlers. We go over kind of a lesson. So I'll talk about socializing shy or fearful cats, and then talk about socializing. We're working on aggressive cats and the different types of aggression and just various topics related to cat behavior and how cats see the world and what cats need to live with people. And then the handlers talk to me about their cats and what's going on and what should they do. And then they work with the cats. They live with them 24/7. And then the cats get adopted out. It's wonderful. It's a great program.
Now, I love the program. So I'm curious about this. With dogs, they usually stay in the cell with the prisoner. With cats, do they actually stay in a cell with the prisoner as well?
Yes. So this particular facility, there are lots of different jobs that people can do in a prison, and the cat program job is sought after for many reasons. Primarily, we hope that people they apply for the cat program because they enjoy working with animals and they want to work with cats. But there are also other benefits because it does count as their job. So instead of being on a litter crew or something outside and, kind of harder work or whatever, they get to socialize cats. So you can see that this would be something that people would want to do. The other benefit of it is that the men don't have to stay in a dormitory. Each handler will share their own room with a closing door. It's not like prison bars or anything like that. They share a room with, it's 2 men per room and then, 1 cat per room, usually, unless it's like a litter of kittens or a bonded pair, they'll go into the same room together. So yeah, it's a room and it's not a big room, but it's big enough for 2 guys, and it's really amazing because you go and look at the rooms, and these are guys that are like kind of rough, they have the tattoos and the hair, and they're like, rah, rah, rah. And then you go and see their rooms, and they have like cat shelves everywhere, pictures of cats, they have cat toys, and it's just like, it's the cutest thing ever.
So I'm gonna ask a question now. I gotta ask this. So where does the litter box go?
Yeah. I mean, there's the litter box and there's not a whole lot of, wiggle room when it comes to their rooms, but the litter box usually goes between the foot of the bed and, the door to the room. So, and they have a window at the head of the bed. So it's usually away from their food and water and then like sleeping spaces, napping spots. It's far enough so that it's not like in their main area. But yeah, there's definitely some limitations.
Now, the other thing I was going to ask is because of a jail cell. Now, you've already answered it. It has the doors. It doesn't have just the bars. So the cat can't just slip through the bars. Okay, that was another one.
Right.
I was always wondering that one too. See, I've seen this and I love prison stories. I don't know what there is about it. I'll even listen to another podcast called Ear Hustle, and it comes from San Quentin, and it's right there in the middle of it all and from prisoners. And I think that's a world that I'm intrigued on that whole notion. It's like, I don't want to ever be a resident, but I want to know how they get there. And I imagine, does that ever kind of resonate in your brain where like, I want to know more. How did you get here? Let me know your story. That would be where I would be. Do you go through that?
Yeah. I definitely think about it, and there are some handlers that are very open about what landed them there, and other people are pretty tight-lipped about it. I don't ask. It's not my place to ask. And, there's professional boundaries that you need to have between the handlers and yourself. And like me and the staff at the Humane Society have all gone through volunteer training through the Department of Corrections. So we're very aware of those professional boundaries, and so it's not my place to ask, but if somebody wants to talk about their experience, I am happy to listen to them. So some people are in there for drugs and theft. Those seem to be two pretty common ones. And yeah, there's been people who were involved in murder, and but there are very strict requirements for who can enter the program and be a handler. So they have to have been on like excellent behavior for goodness knows how long, and then they have to have like only a certain amount of time remaining. So towards the end of their sentence, and so there are restrictions. I think we really haven't had too many issues with handlers mishandling the cats. We've had like a couple incidences, but that was, they're accidental, or, and they're not terribly serious, nothing life-threatening. So it can be a sticky situation, but those things are like few and far between. We just see so many benefits with the handlers, watching them move through the program. They open up, they develop bonds with their cats. It's hard when they have to let the cats go sometimes, because, they connect with the cats. But there are other times when like a handler will connect with a cat, and then they get released and they adopt that cat, or have their family adopt the cat so that the cat is waiting for them when they get released. So that's always a happy story too. We like those stories.
That's, I've always been one that liked the idea of doing so, of having a dog or cat program, because it seems to do something. It actually has a form of rehabilitation to it. You have to care for something that's not yourself. And it's such a great program, and that's so cool that you're part of it. Trust me, if we had anything like that here, I would totally jump on that, because I think that's amazing, and it has to be rewarding and a lot of fun to do.
It is a lot of fun, and it's very rewarding. And to see people move through the program and graduate and get out, and, a couple of people have stayed in touch, and just to see them get their lives together. And I think a lot of them credit it to, learning things that they took away in part from the CAT program. And it's great. I mean, it's one of the most rewarding things I do. And, helping shelters is, I feel like my business is all about like keeping cats in homes and out of shelters, but working with the shelters, I can help cats find those homes, and be there for them when they are in the shelters. So it's kind of two sides of the same coin.
Now, again, you're segueing perfectly into the next start of the conversation, which is working with shelters. Now, what do you do within the shelter now, outside of the prison? Now, what do you do at the shelters?
So that's the work I do with the Southwest Washington Humane Society. And I work with the large cat program. And I also volunteer with, and I do get paid for the work that I do with the prison program. But I also volunteer for another cat rescue. It's cats only. It's called Furry Friends. And it's in Vancouver, Washington. And it's very much a grassroots operation. They're coming up on the 20th anniversary. And we were able to purchase our own halfway house a couple of years ago, which was a huge step because, we'd had to rent places before. But basically we have a house and we can house like 25 to 30 cats there. And they just live in the house. We have different rooms separated. Each room has patio access, so each cat can enjoy fresh air. We have a licensed vet tech that takes care of all the cats. And I'm the behaviorist. Everybody involved with Furry Friends is a volunteer, so there are no paid positions, which is a huge 180-degree turn from a bigger organization like the Humane Society for Southwest Washington.
That's so cool,
And
though.
so, yeah, I am a member of the board, and I help people who have adopted out cats from Furry Friends, like if they're having an acclimation issue or a litter box issue or not getting along with their cats. I help them through with that. Occasionally I'll help cats who are thinking about surrendering their cat to Furry Friends because there's a behavior issue. We can try to head that off at the pass. And then I help educate volunteers about the cat's needs while they're in the shelter, so that they can spend time with cats playing and how might they like to be played with and how to interact with a shy cat and how to greet a cat, all those different little things. So it's a very different program in a different shelter situation than a larger situation. But, there are benefits to both types. I think with larger shelters, the turnover is higher. So cats come and go much more quickly. But at Furry Friends and smaller shelters, they're not in cages or kennels. So they have more room to walk around. They can get fresh air. They have more freedom. But they're typically, we're not open to the public. So all of our cat advertising is done online and through, social media. So the cats are there for a little bit longer. But, it's just a totally different scenario.
Right. I mean, it's working with a shelter or in your case, you kind of have the same spot I am with a nonprofit, and you're working along with these different groups. There is a side that, it's different than working in the prisons, I would imagine. There's a different reward from this. What there is about giving your time for free and volunteering, and you get this big reward where it's different than getting a paycheck for it. I have never been able to isolate how does that work? But you do get this reward feeling like it's nice to see a paycheck, but it's so nice to know I did this because I wanted to and I'm giving back opposed to only wanting to take from myself. It's definitely rewarding.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is so awesome. And I can't believe
I love it. And
I just can't believe we missed this. I just can't believe we missed this on the first episode. I can't believe we missed all this.
Well, there was so much to talk about before.
Right.
So, and there's still so much to talk about.
Oh my gosh.
Like I said in the first interview, I can talk about litter boxes for hours and hours.
And speaking of which, that was on my talking points. Because something that people don't realize, and I'm kind of surprised about this, people don't realize that there's multiple ways of putting litter boxes, different kinds of litter to put in there, different kinds of things to put in a litter box, different places to put a litter box. But the big thing that I thought we would really talk about is your cat does not want to use the litter box because, obviously there's, I think we've mentioned this before, overcrowding of other animals, or there might be too much poop, or might have one of those lids on it, so they're isolated. But the thing we didn't talk about is what we're putting in the litter box. I'm sure that there's a lot of cats that don't like the fragrance, or they don't like the texture. So I thought, well, wouldn't it be funny to talk about the litter and different litters that maybe you've been experiencing have had an issue with different cats' behavior?
Yeah, for sure. So in my experience, I've had the best luck with clients who switch over to using a fine-grained clumping cat litter. And that's usually clay, and it's always unscented. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I recommend my clients start with. Now, that doesn't mean that one cat cats are always going to prefer that. If you give cats a choice, one cat may pick something completely different. But when you look at cats and how they evolved in the Middle East and the Fertile Crescent and North Africa. And what kind of environments are there for cats? They're pretty sandy.
Have you actually ever, and this is something that's kind of weird to even think about, but have you ever seen a cat in the Middle East?
Well, there's a lot of different types of cats. And some of them look very similar to what we consider to be house cats. But I mean, there's wild ones and then there's domesticated ones, and yeah, I mean, I haven't personally been there, but I've seen photos.
I have had the very fortunate luck of being there, and it is, oh my gosh, bizarre. I mean, the cats, and I'm going to leave out the horror story that comes with it, because there's a lot of sad things that happen because they overpopulate and because they don't really spay and neuter. But these cats have the oddest fur. I mean, they look, and I say this in a funny way, not in a mean way, but they look like they've been zapped with electricity because their hair is all wild everywhere. They don't even have the same look as a cat here. And when you're I was in Doha, Qatar, and so it's a little bit more, it's still the UAE or UIE, whatever. But I can always get them mixed up. But anyway, it's still very sandy in different spots, and it's not like Dubai that's built up. It still has that Middle East look, but they were so different and more feral in personality.
Sure. Do you think that's I think that the United States we've adopted cats more as it's shifting over to members of our family.
Yes.
Cats are now members of our family, whereas I think still most of the world, excluding, some parts of Europe, cats are still kind of like these wild creatures that roam around, and spay and neuter isn't, it hasn't really taken off very well. I know that I've gotten inquiries from international people, some people in India or just different parts of the world, and they're like, we don't have veterinarians here. What do I do? And it's hard. I mean, if you have to travel 3 hours to get to a veterinarian who doesn't even know very much about cats, then what do you do?
That's odd. It's funny. My wife has a friend in Egypt, and she's American. She was born and lived here for all of her life up until the last few years. A few years ago, she moved, and she's a dog groomer in Egypt, and apparently it's very normal. They have the veterinarians, they have the grooming salons, but I would imagine that there are a lot of parts, in between that are completely isolated, almost in a sense rural, so they don't have as much as the bigger areas. I mean, obviously, I'm not talking about big populated cities. I'm talking about probably small outside, very, very, very tiny camp areas. But that is so, it's a different world, and I like how you put it. You definitely, nailed it. We are definitely more looking at dogs and cats as more families opposed to them being animals. And even at that, and I've always said this, in the Midwest, it's a little bit different. There's still animals here. It's not unless you're on the west or east coast that area has all grown into, yes, it's their family. But you get to the Midwest and it's
Yeah.
still, their property. That drives me nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. And, not saying that it's necessarily wrong or right. I mean, I feel like I live in a part of the world where we have the luxury to bring animals into our home and be able to give them good homes and excellent nutrition and medical care. So yeah, they become members of the family because we invest in them like family members. Other parts of the world don't have that luxury. They still are worried about taking care of their own basic needs. And so, of course, I think they're going to see animals in a different way than I get to.
Well, I mean, what was it?
I feel like I'm very fortunate.
Well, yes. It was like, I want to say about 10 years ago, there was a song that was written for, and I'm not entirely 100% sure, but it was for, if I'm not mistaken, India, where people were defecating in the streets. So and you can look it up on YouTube, there's a song that's called Poo in the Loo. And it was a PSA to try to get people to go to the bathroom in a toilet opposed to on the street. So, and this is 10 years ago. This isn't like 30, 40, years ago. We're talking recent.
Right.
So, of course, is veterinary care going to be on the top of the list? Probably not. Is nutrition going to be top on the list? Probably not. But still, strange parts of the world that you think have modernized with everybody else. And I'm not saying that even America is ahead of the times. There are other places that are way further advanced than we are. It's just,
absolutely.
It's always shocking to think, people still, they live in a powerless, waterless, shack. And that's normal. It's like, what? Really?
Yeah.
So to hear about veterinary care, it's like, wow. So, So that's our litter talk for this episode of the podcast.
That was quite a tangent. Basically, the message is cats evolved in a place where their litter box was the desert. So you look at litter boxes today and the substrate that we give them to go to the bathroom in, and a lot of it is kind of crazy stuff, and it doesn't really match what they evolved to use. So anyway, that's all to say. I start with something as fine-grained and as clumping as possible. And if that isn't something that the cat likes, then I move on to other things to try. So there's so much out there in terms of cat litter substrate.
And there's colored cat litter, there's wood chips, I've even seen people go, and this is odd, I know this is going to sound odd, I've seen people go to a playground and take sand from a sandbox so that they had cat litter. Yeah. I'm like, ew.
Wow.
Well, it's already got a little urine in it, so why not? I just thought that was a weird one, too.
Well, actually, sometimes it can help, like if a cat is having a hard time learning about the litter box and, you're trying to draw your cat back to the litter box. Sometimes it can be helpful to take a handful of soil from outside, something that smells very organic, and mix it in with your cat litter so that the cat is drawn to that, because the scent is like, oh, this is natural. This is like, if I were outside, I would dig in that garden bed and go right there. And now my litter box smells like that. So
that makes sense. I never really thought about the holistic side and the organic side, bringing it all together into a litter box. So if your cats do have a problem pooping in a litter box, that does make sense. Didn't think that one out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Any other great hints that we need to talk about while we're still on the litter box challenge?
Oh, litter box. I mean, like I said, I can talk for hours.
Right.
Litter boxes. But there's just so much, there's so many different aspects to the litter box. I would say if your cat is having a problem using the litter box, take a look at the litter box setup in general. Commercial pet products are sold to humans. And that's because A, cats don't have money, and B, cats generally don't go to the pet stores and pick out their products themselves. And so cat products are marketed towards humans. And if you're standing in the pet store looking at litter boxes and going, which one do I want? You're thinking, what one do you want? Not one does your cat want. First, because that's going to be easiest to clean. And I want the one with the hood on it because that's the cutest and I can put it in a corner and I won't have to look at the poops that are in it.
Right.
Right? So throw that out the window and go, that is the opposite of what your cat wants. Your cat does not want the equivalent of what is a porta potty. Because think about when you have to go to a festival or a fair or something and there's that long line of porta potties all next to each other. You go in, you hold your breath, you try not to touch anything, you're in one spot, and you run out as fast as you can. That is kind of the equivalent of the commercial cat litter box. Especially if you're using a scented litter, which is like the equivalent of that blue water that they put in there, you know, that smells perfumey, but also like feces. So just think about the litter box that you're thinking about buying and how that might equate to the porta potty equivalent for your cat. And then I advise you to leave the pet store and go over to Target or Walmart or, you know, some other kind of discount store and go to their storage bin aisle and look at their storage bins because they're bigger, they're cheaper, and they work better than most commercial litter boxes. There are two types of cats I've found. And in terms of their styles and the way they pee. So we have the regular cats who squat when they pee, and that's great, perfect, wonderful, good kitty. And then we have cats that, for some reason or another, decide that they like to stand up when they are peeing. So I like to call them elevator butts. They will start squatting, but then they raise their butt as they're peeing. And then you'll get like a long line of urine that if you don't have sides of the litter box that are tall enough, it goes outside the litter box.
Oh, yeah.
Which is one of the reasons why people buy hooded litter boxes. So for the regular peers, the squatters, get a litter box that is 5 or 6 inches tall, and a storage box. So like Sterilite makes a great one. It's like 5 inches tall by about 15 inches wide by about 20 inches long. It's perfect. I mean, for like a regular size cat. Your litter box should be about 1.5 times the length of your cat, without the tail, so that they can turn around and dig and explore their litter box environment. And then for those elevator butt cats, if you have one of those, stay in the storage box aisle and get one of those utility totes, the high-sided utility totes, and take off the lid, but cut a U-shaped door in one of the sides so your cat doesn't have to jump over the edge to get in the box. But those high-sided utility tubs are perfect for the elevator butt cats, and it keeps the litter inside too. So I feel like I've said my piece about litter boxes themselves.
I think it's brilliant though, because the typical litter box is really just a tote. I personally would say I never thought of it that way. And they charge you so much for the same thing as a tote would cost, and then some, like 3 times that most of the time. That's
exactly.
weird.
I mean, it's just a plastic pail. I mean, people use they will also go to Home Depot or Lowe's and buy one of those cement mixing bins.
Yeah.
Those work great. And they're, you can buy these things for under $10, whereas if you go to a pet store, it's going to be $25, $30.
Oh, easily. Oh,
something
easily.
That's not as good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's what I always found to be really funny, is that they overcharge for the same little product. It's kind of weird.
Right. Well, you put pet in front of anything, and there goes your price margin. You can increase it by 3.
Well, that's
So,
typically what they do. That's kind of
yeah,
sad. That's
yeah.
kind of sad. And then when they have this this sale on any kind of plastic totes, really honestly, you could just stock up, and then who would know? And you get different color ones too. That's odd to think.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right.
So, yeah, it's great. I mean, cats don't know the difference.
No.
No,
they don't.
They like the one that they like, and I'm telling you, they're gonna like a storage box better than their, some standard commercial litter box.
That's odd. Now, out of curiosity, weird curiosity,
Yeah.
is that something that they actually use in the prisons?
They are limited on space, so they have large litter boxes where they are. And the other thing is, a lot of times the handlers are housing kittens,
Oh,
so
yeah.
their litter boxes don't necessarily need to be as big. But yeah, it's they have some special circumstances, so they have a
Wow.
harder time.
That is so interesting. And I've always been one of those people that I really don't mind poop talk. Because it's something, especially when it comes to dogs and cats, and humans, obviously, but, in the reference to dogs and cats, it's something that we know is going to happen every day. So we have to prepare for it. And I don't understand why people don't think about this stuff ahead of time. Same thing with anal glands with the dog. They don't understand that that's going to happen. And it's like, no, this happens. So, and a cat is going to need a litter box. So,
Right.
I am actually going to start looking at totes because I never even thought about that. That is brilliant.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm taking something away
It's
from
not
this.
my idea. I wish I could say it was my idea, but I am definitely not the first person to suggest anything else.
But on this podcast, you are.
I'm just a fan.
That is so cool. And again, you can get really nice little color ones, so it'll be all different. So I'm looking at it from a big perspective.
Right. No, you can get the seasonal coats come out. You can
Yeah.
get the storage boxes in nearly any color you want.
Wow. We can have a different color litter box, multiple different colors, and it'll be nicer. Why haven't I not thought of this? Well, you did. You thought of this. You're coining this as yours. Trademark. This is all you. I'm going to give it to you. That's awesome. No, I don't want to take it. No, that was awesome. That's awesome. Now,
right.
So we'll kind of we'll put a little chapter mark on litter, and let's go into something that I find really interesting, and it's a behavior issue that I have never really been able to put my finger on, and that is cats that have to go outside. Like, they have to go out. If they don't go out, they literally will lose their mind, where other cats are very content being homebodies. I've never understood that behavior, and I would love to wrap my brain around it, and since I have you here, you can help me with that.
Yeah. Okay. So, oh gosh, I had, let me take the Wayback Machine. Back in, oh goodness, I'm going to say 1994. I moved from California to Pennsylvania, rural Pennsylvania, and I had an apartment there, and I decided I needed a kitten. And it turned out that my neighbors next door their cat had a litter of kittens, and there was this orange one I went and met, and he was probably about 10 weeks old, and he had just eaten a slug, so he had this slug goo all over his mouth, and I almost named him Sluggo, but I ended up naming him Nemo. And for the rest of that cat's life, he wanted to be outdoors. And I didn't let him outdoors because where I was, and just moving around to different places, it just wasn't safe for him to be outdoors. And knowing what I do know now, I think I would have been able to meet his needs better. But he always wanted to go outside. He was constantly looking at the window, meowing at the window, meowing at doors. And when I got him, again, he was about 10 weeks old, and he was outside when I got him. So he had spent those critical socialization period between the ages of 2 and 7 weeks, having access to the outdoors or being outdoors entirely. And I think that having so much environmental enrichment, that's what the outdoors is to cats. It's just 100% environmental enrichment. There are smells, there are sounds, there are movements, there are birds, there are, mice, there are slugs if you're a 10-week-old kitten and are into slugs. There's so much out there. And because cats are these, as I said last time, they're essentially wild, adorable, wild, predatory, carnivorous beasties, they are evolved to be outside and be predatory, and that means a lot of different things. They're also prey. So as both predators and prey, they like to hide and explore and chase things and get up in areas where they can see all around them. And the outdoors provides all of this to them. And so I think with cats who really want to be outdoors, they've had some outdoor experience that makes them go like, yeah, I really like it out there, and in here sucks. And then other cats, either they were exposed to the outdoors and it was a frightening experience, or they just were never outdoors and don't care to go outdoors. And so it's something that they haven't missed, but they still need enrichment that you can take care of those things inside. So anyway, those are my thoughts on it. Cats are each unique individuals that are made up of their own preferences, but also because of their genetics, but also, they're shaped by their experiences as well. So if they've had experiences outdoors, were they positive or negative, and how, that definitely impacts whether or not they want to go outside later in life.
It's weird. I've had only 2 cats, and it was actually one until recently. That was just, they were all rescue. None of them wanted to go outside. Now, I'm pretty sure I know that they all had experience time out, but for some odd reason, I had only one, and he didn't want to be inside at all. And we used to call him Street Team because he wanted to be out there. But now I have another cat that's not as old as that cat, as the first one, a Street Team, and he's a great indoor cat. But boy, he wants to go outside all the time. So you have to be cautious. Okay, it's nighttime. I'm not going to let you out at night. But it's daytime. All right, fine. Go ahead. Doesn't matter. Rain or shine. Rain. Nothing matters to him. He doesn't care. He'll jump right in a big pile of snow. He's like, whatever. But he demands it. And he's not old. I would say an estimation under a year. Definitely under a year. I would go about 8 months, maybe 6 to 8. And he's just very, very, he was...
Do you know anything about his early life?
All I know about his early life, and it was a sad story. We were doing pantry one month at the shelter, giving out food to the low income, and this one volunteer who wasn't working that day comes up and says, "Hey, I know you guys do rescue. We saw this cat thrown out of a car window." It's like, what? You're kidding me, right? No, it was thrown out the car window. We don't know what to do with it. Cat sustained no injuries, which was phenomenal. Had a couple scratches, but no big deal. Great cat. My guess is that it was probably an accidental litter, and they were trying to probably sell the kittens, couldn't get rid of it, and decided, well, we'll just, toss it, and that'll be the end of it. Which, it's one of those are you kidding me moments, but that's as far as I know of his backstory. Great cat, wonderful cat to sleep in. Yeah, we lock all of our dogs and cats out of the room except for him. He's wonderful. He'll snuggle up to you, and it's the greatest night of sleep you'll ever have. But he still wants to go outside. So I'm like, why? Why do you want to go out there? Everything's here. We got food. We got water. We got toys. We got places to go and lay down. Why do you want to go out there? And he doesn't even go out there to hunt. That's the big thing. Yeah. He's not even a hunter. He's an explorer. That's it. I'm like, I want to get into his behavior. I want to know what would make this guy tick a little bit more. So, yeah.
If he's an exploratory cat, you should look into creating, if you want to transition him to be out inside, more inside, you can always increase vertical space, and there are examples online of people who have gone nuts with making like cat tunnels and cat walkways and all sorts of things throughout their home. But as soon as you start adding vertical space in your home, shelves and cat trees and walkways, that just exponentially increases the amount of usable space for cats. I mean, we think in terms of square footage, and that's just 2-dimensional. That's floor space. But cats really see the world as, in 3 dimensions, because that's how they live in their natural environment. They use trees, they go under things, they go in things, they crawl on all sorts of things. So vertical space and providing your cats with new places to explore on a regular basis can help quench some of that stuff. Especially if you leave little treats, like it could be food treats, but it could also be a nice resting spot or, cat grass or, a new toy or like a little, dash of catnip, in various locations. So, those are all things that can encourage exploratory behavior and really increase enrichment within your home.
I know we've looked into some of the Pinterest stuff, which my wife loves Pinterest. And unfortunately, she'll show me these things, and I go, oh, I really want that. And one was go to garage sales and find old drawers to different dressers, and you can mount them on the wall, and they're great as places for them to jump up into. That's something I when you were talking, I'm like, that's definitely on the list of things. But I still don't know. Yeah. He seems like the type, he doesn't leave the actual property itself. Well, no, he does. He does cross the street, which drives me nuts. But most of the time, he's always right in our front yard, right around our garage area. And I'm just like, I don't want you out here. I don't want anything to happen to him. But I want to get into his brain and figure out what's making you tick. I don't even know.
That's part of his territory, and he's claims that is his territory, and he needs to patrol his territory and check out who's been in it and leave messages and, do all the things that a territorial cat would do. And maybe the home is just not big enough territory for him, and it doesn't contain all of his resources. And, resources can be food and water and litter box, of course, but he might also be getting those things from the outside part of his territory as well. So he might just have a big territory.
He requires a lot. Wow. That makes some sense, though. That makes a lot of sense. He's just, as I talk this one out and you're putting all this together, I'm like, wow, he is an explorer. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. What are you going to do? Yeah. So, I always like to ask this question. I kind of buried it until a little later, and that is, my favorite question of all is, what has you on your soapbox at this very moment?
Oh, my soapbox at this very moment. It can be so many things.
Right?
Oh, gosh. Okay, so spraying cats with water. This seems to be, like, for some reason, a super divisive topic, and I don't get it. Like, I've written an article that I have on my website, and when I see people say, just spray your cat with water on Facebook or, social media, I just share my post and, or share my article, and it lays out all these reasons why spraying your cat with water is not good. And I still get people writing back to me, and I did a video on it, and I did the article, and I get people responding like, well, I spray my cat with water when blah, 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 and that's the time to spray your cat with water. And I'm like, no, it isn't. You didn't listen to anything I had to say.
Right.
So spraying cats with water is kind of my beef right now. But I go back and forth between that and trying to toilet train your cat. I don't like that either. That is so bad. And then also, of course, declawing is like a huge, big no-no that, but people get very heated about the declawing issue. So I have stated my position on declawing. I am against it. And if, I think it's an unnecessary and painful procedure that can lead to behavior and physical problems, if not immediately down the line. It has lifelong consequences. And if your cat has been declawed and you don't have any problems, you're lucky, and I'm glad that your cat is not suffering from that action. My husband declawed 2 of his cats before I met him, and they are still with us, and I feel badly for them because I know at least one of them is having some paw pain, which is difficult to resolve. So I try not to judge, but I also try to educate a little bit where that's concerned. So
I'm with you on that.
Those are kind of my three things. Yeah, those are my 3 things.
I like them. They're good.
Yeah.
They're good. I've never squirted my cat with water, so I'm with you on that.
Very good.
Let's see. Now with declawing of cats, I didn't do it. My grandmother did. But shoot, in some sense, it's where I was like, well, it's very common with older people because of the skin, and it can cause a lot of issues. If it's a health thing, I will, in a sense, kind of go, all right, if it's health and done right, it might not be a problem. Unfortunately, it did leave paralysis where she did have pain in her paw. Because again, if it's not, it's so barbaric. And a lot of the vets that I know, they're like, I don't do it. And if I do, it has to be only for a medical need. That's the only way I'm willing to do it. And we always look at other alternatives before. So yeah, I'm with you completely. But yeah, good soapbox. I like it. I mean, I go on tantrums about all kinds of weird things. You have good soapboxes, and you've come up with some really good ideas, and you're coining as your own. As I said, the whole tote, that's your idea. And I'm going to trademark that's yours. You had another good idea.
Some angry email by somebody, and that was my idea. And I'm like, hey man, you can have it.
Hey, you didn't say it on the podcast, so as far as I'm concerned, it's not your idea. And you've claimed to be a nutritionist because you're on a podcast. Oh wait, I told you.
No,
that was me.
I'm not a nutritionist.
I knighted you a nutritionist on the podcast. That's right, I forgot.
No.
Let's see. I loved talking about the whole, prison situation. I really do love that whole topic. I'm glad you brought that to my attention because that's an amazing opportunity to be part of. One of the only things that I was thinking is, what is some of the oddest behaviors you've ever encountered?
Oh gosh, it's hard for me to just think of one. Most of my clients are pretty standard, cats not using the litter box or spraying, or not getting along with other cats. I know that I've seen cats with kind of odd quirks, or like somebody will be like, my cat does this and I can't figure out why. And I'm like, that bumps me too. An odd behavior is when cats are focused on eating something that's not food, that's, pica, or pica, some pronounce it either way. And that's an issue that's difficult to deal with. Gosh, I can't really think of an odd situation right off the top of my head.
Don't worry, you'll think of it after.
Yeah, I'm sure I will. I'll email you.
We'll save it for another time. I mean, honestly, you know what? I will actually give everybody kind of a behind the scenes on how this goes. So every time it seems like I'll record something and maybe a day, a week, whatever will go by and be like, I'll get this message or email. I now know what I wanted to say. It was a perfect thing, especially in the soapbox question. That one, typically gets people, and they don't think about it at the moment because I don't tell you guys, here's what we're going to talk about, because it's kind of spur of the moment. But that one, that's the one. But you'll come up with something. I'm sure you're like, oh my God, the oddest behavior I ever had was a cat that liked to. Yeah, that'll happen.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure it'll come up. It'll hit me at like 2:00 in the morning one night.
Well, you're only on volume 2. We got to get you up to, Dr. Koger's area. You're right there. You're right there in good company though in volume 2. So, I mean, I'll tell you, it's definitely good. Anything else that we didn't cover? And then, of course, follow up with how can everybody get in touch with you?
Right. Well, obviously, there's like 3 more hours of litterbox chat that I could do.
Right. Just 3?
I could probably stretch it out to more if you are really interested. But no, I don't have anything else for right now. And I'm sure your listeners are like, oh, thank goodness. No more litterbox talk, please.
No, I actually,
I can talk about poop. I don't even know I can talk about poop.
I think it's great. I even just put a note down, more litterbox talk next time, because honestly, I had to make that note. It was like, again, I love telling people, some behind the scenes to things because, again, transparency and, it is entertaining to do this stuff. And one thing is that I was reviewing different things from our last conversation. You were listening to the last one, trying to remember, do we topic on everything and what not to cover.
Right.
And the moment we start talking, it's like, I was listening to the podcast before. And I'm like, and I was reading about it in my notes. That's how we started this before we even went on the podcast today. We started to record.
It's true.
All right. And again, how does everybody get in touch with you?
Okay, so you can go to my website. It's www.felinebehaviorsolutions.com. And I have a lot of different articles there under my blog. If you're looking for behavior help, search that. And there's articles on litterbox setups and all sorts of other things. It also has my services in case you are in need of specific behavior help or want to talk with me. You can send me an email at Marci, that's Marci, at felinebehaviorsolutions.com. And you can find me on social media, like everywhere. So Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Gosh, I even have a Google Plus account. So,
wow.
Yeah, crazy. Oh, YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. So yeah, look me up.
What's great is that we have so much more to go over, and that's why I love this. It's not okay, well, thanks for being on, and that's the end of it, and we'll never talk again. Yeah. That's the one thing that I've never understood with any show. Why is it you don't keep the conversation going? It doesn't have to go all in one time. You space it out. You have a good time. I'm lost.
Exactly. That's how I feel about it.
Right. All right. Well, I guess that until the next time, I think that's it for this time. Would you agree that we've covered it, and we'll let everybody kind of?
I think we're good. There's plenty to share for the future, and I've had a real nice time talking with you, Chris, and
Always.
This has been great.
Well, I'm Chris Green. Have a fantastic week. Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay, guys.